We begin with a story. We begin with a story. The story began 5 years ago. Two people met. One of them still in school. And they took a liking to each other. And their relationship grew, so much so that they determined that they wanted to spend their life together. And we were fortunate because yesterday we witnessed the magic moment where Willis proposed to Catherine. And this was quite a scheme. Catherine was going to be here in Shanghai, and Willis was not. But Willis works for a company called DJI Drones, as a drone, and he works on the entertainment side of this. And so he conspired with us to surprise Catherine yesterday. And so a picture of that surprise. A drone hovered off the balcony, and we all stared at it. And Catherine said, "Oh, I have to take a picture because Willis will be so impressed. That's one of our drones. That's one of our drones." And so she dutifully took that picture and was getting all excited, getting ready to send it off to him using Wi-Fi, when suddenly he appeared from behind and said, "I'm here." And this came as a bit of a shock because she was unhappy. He had not been responding to her FaceTime and her email requests. He had not responded because, of course, he was on a plane on the way to Shanghai. And so here they are. So, friends, let's begin by celebrating the joining of two millennials. And product placement is everything. There's the drone. So my duty today is just to really warm things up, to kick things off. And so that all of our speakers aren't required to do it, let me get some of the business out of the way. Let me talk a little bit about definitions and dangers. And so when we talk about an outline for the future, the idea here is that, of course, young people are always the future. Throughout human history, this has been the case. But it's especially true for a generation this size, and a generation that in significant ways is different from those that have gone before. And so that's why we're thinking of what you are about to hear as an outline of the future. When people talk about what millennials care about, when people talk about what they value, what they worry about, what they fear, we're talking about people who are going to be in charge, people who are already reshaping our world. Now, in terms of definitions, the term millennial is not commonly used here. Of course, in China, we talk about 八零后, and we talk about九零后, this generation. But essentially, we're talking about people born since 1980. So the group that's roughly 15 to 34 years of age. Now, there are possible problems with anything that you hear now. Anything that people say from this moment forward is wrong. It's going to be wrong for some people because we're going to be generalizing. We're going to be talking in sweeping statements about hundreds of millions of people. And of course, this is a diverse group. And so all of our statements won't accurately describe every person that is in this age group. But we have confidence that we're talking about trends, that we're talking about patterns, that we can do. Now, there's another danger. It's possible that when the 20-somethings become 40-somethings, they'll be a whole lot more like their parents than they are today. That with new responsibilities, child rearing and that sort of thing, advancing on the career track, these sorts of things, that people's attitudes, their framework, their ideas may change. We've all heard people say, Yes, my parents used to say that, and now I'm saying that. So it's possible that the people we talk about today will grow closer to their parents in terms of attitudes, in terms of aspirations, in terms of worries. So that's one danger, that's one limiting factor. And a third factor that we should be mindful of is the moment. There have been dramatic developments, certainly here in China. The rapid rise of the Chinese economy, the tremendous growth that's happened, the transformation of the landscape is so dramatic. It's unprecedented in human history. And so that has to leave an indelible impact on people. In the United States, for example, 9/11 in 2001, that was a big event that had a dramatic impact on people's lives and on the country's direction. For China, in December of that year, China entered the WTO. All of these things, of course, help to shape what we have. Now, this picture comes from a project by Adrian Fisk. It's a wonderful project called I Speak China. And essentially, he went around and he had individuals in rural areas, in cities, men, women, young, all young, and asked them to write on a card what they thought, what their dream was, what their future was about. And so here we have somebody who might be thought of as Ling Lei, as somebody who's alternative, who's outside the norm. But for those of you who can read Chinese, you can see that what he's written is, while many people in society may see me as troublemaker, bad person, in fact, he says, I ting hua, I am obedient, okay? And so people have different messages, how they send these things. Well, let's look very quickly at some numbers. So here's the population pyramid for China last year. And we're not going to dwell now on the male-female gap, although that's significant, and this generation is dealing with it in ways that nobody else have had to deal with it, but they actually have it easy compared to those who are still coming along, where the male-female gap is even larger. But if we look at this group and we go essentially from 15 to 34, we see it's a large number of people. 415 million people. Much bigger than the United States. That single group, bigger than the United States. And if we look just at those who are out of school or in college, 20 to 34, more than 300 million people. The scale of things shocks Americans. People in China are, of course, used to it because everybody's on the subway at the same time. But Americans sometimes have trouble getting their head around the notion that China could have a generation larger than an entire country. How about the United States? This population pyramid looks different, doesn't it? And so we mark these folks. And of course, the numbers are smaller. Everything about the United States is smaller compared to China. But still, this is a huge group of people. 87 million between 15 and 34, 66 million between 20 and 34. So that's who we're talking about. Those are the numbers. Now, for the United States, we have all kinds of data about these millennials, about the American ba ling ho, zhou ling ho, yi dai, that generation of people. You can get this data from the U.S. Census Bureau, you can get it from the Pew Research Center, you can get it from many different places. We don't have as rich a pool of data yet over time for China. But in fact, today you're going to have 3 speakers who are going to draw on a remarkable survey that Fudan University has conducted. And they're going to shine lights into important trends in China today, especially in urban China. But here, just note these 2 charts. And on the left, we have the parents of the millennials, and we can see that, first of all, California has always, of course, had a higher percentage of foreign-born immigrants than the rest of the United States on average. But you can also see that California is much closer in terms of marriage patterns. And one of the striking things is that this group, this generation, is choosing not to marry or is marrying much later. And of course, because the numbers are so big, business is after them. Business sees them as a big target. And some of our speakers are going to be talking about that. But if you read the Los Angeles Times last Sunday, you would see how many hotel chains were marketing to this generation in the United States. And what they were choosing was different kind of furniture, different kinds of accommodations, this sort of thing. And so we have this example of Citizen M Hotel, this chain. Of course, Chinese are on the road. On average, 6,000 Chinese arrive in the United States every day. Most of them passing through LAX, through the Los Angeles International Airport. So American business is trying hard, both on that side of the Pacific and on this side of the Pacific, to address this audience. Let's look at marriage for just a moment. We have two speakers who are going to be talking in detail about what happens after you get married, and we have two speakers who are going to be talking about the pursuit, what people are looking for in a mate. So here, though, we just have some numbers, and you can see that from 1980 to today, the trend has been in the direction of people marrying at an older age. In the United States, men at 29 now, women at 27. China, people marry a little bit younger. But look at Shanghai. Shanghai, on average, people marry at a more advanced age than do Americans. So the marriage market. Many people, of course, meet up at work, they meet in social settings, they meet at school, these sorts of things, but we've all been to these parks. And you've seen, for example, Chengdu, Nanjing, Dalian, or here in Shanghai, where it's not so much the kids that are out there trying to match up, but who? Parents. Parents worried about their children. Because earlier generations married earlier. They're not accustomed to that. Well, we have a project together with the Communication University of China where every year we bring Chinese students and American students together and we marry them up for a month and they go off and make a movie. They make a documentary, short documentary. These are wonderful. You can see them at our website. Here's a 30-second clip from one.
门当户对有很多种，你知道吗？其中会有教育背景的，会有经济上的，而且还会有精神上的。我是要求没说经济上的，我是要求要有教育背景，还有这个精神上的门当户对。
梦梦是从俄罗斯留学回来的女博士，在婚姻这件事上，她坚持宁缺毋滥。 对于未来的另一半，他有自己的特别要求。
我喜欢那种就类似于普京的才华这种男人。
Every girl's dream to marry Vladimir Putin. Well, not long ago, we had a conference in Los Angeles where a pollster from China came and reported that in third and fourth tier cities, that's what young people thought, that Vladimir Putin was a real man. In any case, you can see those documentaries on our website. And I'm going to conclude here by mentioning where we're going to end. You're going to hear speakers in a moment talking about the things that people want to get involved in, that the millennials, the 八零后, the 九零后generation want to change the world. They want to do it at their workplace and they want to do it socially through different organizations. Here we have illustrated some Shanghai efforts to change various things, from raising money for Special Olympics, to addressing climate change, to eradicating the consumption of sharks.